What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to the ForTheFans podcast for the 20th of September. In today's show, we talk all about Gabriel and Costa's antics over at Arsenal v Chelsea, we discuss the depressing scenes over at Liverpool, and we also talk about Martial's flying start at Manchester United. Let's get started.
Viewers, listeners, welcome back. It is ForTheFans show, week 5, 6. Where are we?
Six, I think. I can't count, so...
Week 6. As ever, I am joined by Work the Space. Jack, how are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Not too bad at all.
And he's back from his summer holiday. Callum, welcome back.
I've got a nice tan.
Have you? Is that what you went for, the tan?
Yeah, lots of pool tan. I've got. Right. It's a bit of a bad tan line, actually. I've got some bad tan lines.
Tell us all about your holiday. Where did you go? What did you get up to?
I went to the Canary Islands, ForTheFans.
So are they called Norwich now?
Yeah.
Norfolk, went to the Broads.
Oh, yeah.
Not as good. I'll say now, not as good.
That might be why you struggle with the tan.
But yeah, it was a very nice week. Thanks for asking, Ben.
We had a great show last week. You didn't tweet us, so we know you didn't listen, so thanks for that, mate. Appreciate it. But we had a good show last week, didn't we, Jack?
We did. It was lovely without you, so we set the bar higher, I think, than it's ever been set before.
Now, last week we didn't have a feature, but with the return of Callum Keane brings the return of Ben's feature of the week. I added a bit more there on the end. Is that all right?
Lovely.
I'll allow it.
Better or worse? Anyway, let's get on then with this week's feature. Now, in recent weeks we've been doing Guess the Footballer. This week, because Keno's been away, I thought we'd do Where was he from? Where were they from?
Is this going to be place in the UK or country?
You'll see. You're against each other. It's a competition as ever. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to name a country that a player in the Premier League is from, or has been from in the Premier League history. So we're going in the archives here. If you can tell me the player name of someone from that country, you get a point. Okay?
Okay.
Brilliant. Callum, good?
Yeah. Sounds
all
good.
right, so we'll start with, and you can just jump in at any point, all right? First name on the sheet. Obviously, I might say sometimes this person was from this country, name someone else, all right? So you can't name the person I've mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Right. Country number 1. Benin. Who is from Benin? Which Premier League footballers in the history of the Premier League have been from Benin?
Rudy Gested.
That's a point for Callum Keane. Jack, you have now You have 5 seconds to name the other player.
Who is an absolute fucking shithouse. He's awful.
Gested's brother. I don't know.
Stefan Sessegnon was the other one.
Ah.
Yeah. So just quickly on Gested. Rubbish.
Okay, yeah, we got that. We'll just make the show explicit after 3 minutes. Right. Next, which I'll give you a clue. Which goalkeeper was from Estonia? Three clubs.
Antiniemi.
Bogdan.
No, I like your thinking. No, sadly not. Sadly not either.
Can we not keep guessing? Or
sure, yeah. You get a quick. Yeah, you get a couple more guesses. Why not? Until it gets ridiculous.
Do they still play now?
No, they don't.
Okay,
you can ask questions, I guess. I'll give you clues.
Who did they play for?
Derby, Sunderland, and Arsenal.
Oh, Arsenal.
Mm.
You'll tell me and I'll know it. It's sort of
you're both know the name.
I can't think of it, no.
No, I'll forfeit.
Correct answer is Mart Poom. Do you remember Mart Poom?
I almost said Poom. You might not hear it in my mic, but I actually said P at one point.
He was you said the first letter of the name.
I did.
He was a fantasy football, he was always like one of the default keepers on like 2005 fantasy football.
Well, because was he like Arsenal's backup or something?
Yeah, and he was really cheap, so you could put him in as a yeah. I'm Colin Hendry.
The next country, one player from the Premier League era has come from this country. That country is Kenya.
Wanyama.
Correct.
Boom.
Well played, Jack.
Victor Wanyama, the only Kenyan to ever play in the Premier League. But a point for Jack there. So what's that? That's 1-1.
Well, we can't keeping count this week. I never thought this day would come.
Well, 1-1. I'm trying to. We'll carry on. The most famous New Zealander, don't say anything, to play in the Premier League is arguably Ryan Nelson, who represented Blackburn Rovers, Tottenham, and Queen's Park Rangers. Can you
Chris
name
Wood?
One?
Chris Wood, yeah,
very good.
And Winston Reid.
Correct. I'll give you. Do you know what? Because you clearly both had answers there, I feel like, so I'll give you both a point.
Yeah.
Other players: Simon Elliott for Fulham. Probably won't recognise that. Lee Norfolk,
No.
Danny Hay. Names that.
There's some obscure ones there that I wouldn't have
They
got.
really are. Okay, the next one then. 4 players have represented this country in the Premier League. That country is Peru.
Oh, first one, Nobby Solano, Villa
Point.
legend and Newcastle legend.
Point. I will say you're probably only going to get one more.
Quick fact about Nobby Solano, fantastic trumpet player.
Oh,
Great at the trumpet.
thanks for that. Right, well, I remember that for my pub quiz next time. It might come up.
Right, there's probably one more name you could potentially get.
Vargas.
No, incorrect. You're not going to get Diego Pena. That was Chile.
Can I just say, in saying Vargas, I just named a name that I know some Peruvian players are called and hoping it matched.
Brilliant. The other answer is, I don't think you're going to get it, although you will recognise the name, was Claudio Pizarro, who plays for Chelsea.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't there very long. But,
Also proven. He wasn't there very long, you're correct. Moving on to another country. Do you know what? I won't tell you anyone that's not from there, but whoever can name the most is going to win, okay? The country is...
England. Right, let's go.
Russia. There's 8 players from Russia.
Ivanovic.
Ivanovic is Serbian.
Oh, Serbian. Oh, all right. I'll leave now. Right, be right back.
That's suspending. Carry on.
Andrei Arshavin, first one that I can...
Correct. Doing it alphabetical order, I like that.
Yuri Zhirkov.
Good. 2. Jump in at any point, Jack.
I'm just sat puzzled. I'm still thinking about Ivanovic. I can't believe I've done that.
Pavlyuchenko.
Very good. 3. Callum Keane is on fire here, Jack.
Did Kurzakov ever play in the Premier
No.
League? I don't think he did, but I'll just name players in the Russian national team. Maybe one of them.
One that played for Portsmouth, Chelsea, Charlton and Fulham. One that played for Everton. One very famously played for Manchester United and Manchester City.
Everton. Is it Billy Anekdinov?
Very good, Callum Keane. This is very impressive.
Is he a connoisseur in Russian? I'm glad that there's...
I've been away. I've been reading up on Russian football.
I'm glad.
This is the Russian football podcast.
I'm glad that the point for this was whoever names the most gets a point, because if it was a point per name, I'm out at this point.
Well, I think we'll wrap it there. One you could have had, boys, I'm disappointed you didn't get Andrei Kanchelskis.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very notable.
Before my time.
Pogrebniak.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah.
And Alexei Smirtin. Do you remember him?
I don't.
I remember Alexei Smirtin. I think he signed for Chelsea. He's one of the first players to go to Chelsea under the Abramovich era. I think, Smirtin. 2 countries to go. Andrei Shevchenko famously played for Chelsea. Can you name the other notable Ukrainians from the Premier League, or any Ukrainian?
This is a Liverpool-related one. Voronin.
Oh.
Correct. Showing up there. There's 2 more you will have heard of. There's Alex Evtushok, which I don't think you would get. There's 2 others you definitely will have heard of.
I feel like there's pressure on me now. I want to say, and I know this is wrong.
Back at least 10 years. Though.
I want to say Coates, but I know he was signed from. He's Uruguayan, but he was. Wait, but he was signed from the Ukrainian league, which is.
I don't think he was.
He was. He got Ukrainian Player of the Year.
No, he didn't.
He did.
No, he signed from Nacional. See, this is awful because I'm now going to have to look it up.
I'm now going to check.
I know he got the player from. He wasn't at a Ukrainian team. He just wasn't. I hate to make you look like a mug, Jack.
I've gone crazy. Send help.
He was. He got the. What's the tournament which isn't the Euros but it's in South America?
The Copa.
No, it's not the Copa America.
The Libertadores.
No,
that's the Champions League.
I meant Copa America. Yeah, he was like a very good player at the Copa America. Jack. That's what you're thinking of.
It is.
Anyway,
where did I get Ukraine from? That's a random.
Now he's in Sunderland.
Can I just say, if you are a new listener to the show, we do know plenty about football, and Jack is not the standard that we're setting right now.
I feel like Ukrainian footballers, and just generally kind of Eastern European footballers, just...
He doesn't even know he's west from his east.
I know. Where am I?
I've got to end this somehow. Oleg Luzny, Arsenal, and Wolverhampton Wanderers, and Sergei Rebrov. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Sergei Rebrov. Finally...
Can I just point out, Kino's going, oh yeah, like he knew it. I just sit and go, wouldn't have got that. So, I'm honest, viewers.
Kino has got knowledge, but he's got honesty. Right. The final country, Fernando Amorobitia, who played for Fulham in the 13-14 season, is from Venezuela. Yeah. Name the other Venezuelan to have played in the Premier League. This is the final one.
Rondon.
Jack wins the quiz. Well done, Jack.
Well done,
Boom.
Jack.
I do see. It's just It's just Eastern Europe that I don't know. I know all about my African and American football.
I was thinking Ulysses de la Cruz, but he was
Colombian, Ecuadorian,
Ecuadorian. I think.
Thank you. Anyway, I've seen him play football once. Anyway, I imagine you have as well. So let's get into some actual football stuff. That was Ben's feature of the week. One of the best features.
That's a new tone. That one.
Yeah. I've gone higher. I'll tell you who's also gone higher, Jack. Chelsea.
Well, they couldn't have gone much lower, could they? Really?
They played Arsenal this week.
It would have been wonderful for them to be bottom of the table, but
it would have been nice, wouldn't it? It'd have been a nice moment for everyone, I think. So Chelsea beat Arsenal 2-0. It was quite a controversial game, it's fair to say, Jack. And you've got a gripe with the referee. We'll start with him.
Do we want to talk about the incident in question? I feel like most people know the incident, but basically, Costa's. I want to say he's given Koscielny a friendly clawing to the face on 2 occasions.
The way you've described it, I'd struggle to see how that's friendly, but go on.
And there's been a bit of an incident, shall we say. There's been a bit of argy-bargy, Costa doing Costa things, and then Gabriel, he just gets a bit angry, really, doesn't he? He gets a yellow card for sticking up for his mate, and then, well, he sees red because apparently he kicks Costa. I don't actually think there was much in it, and I just don't really think Mike Dean's done anything right in this situation.
So from your perspective here, what should have happened? Everyone knows at this point what has happened, but what should have happened?
So the thing that annoys me first is the fact that Costa did Koscielny get booked as well in the whole scrap?
No, Koscielny didn't get booked.
So it was just Gabriel and Diego Costa, but Costa gets a yellow card for the initial incident with Gabriel, and I don't know if that was also factoring in the foul that he did on Koscielny, because if it didn't, or rather, if it did, those should be 2 separate yellows, so he should be off at that point. I don't think anyone would have any disputes for a yellow card for what he did to Koscielny when you consider, was it, who was it for
it was,
Stoke?
Craig Gardner, I believe. Was Gardner involved?
Well, no, I was going to say, it was the Stoke incident where Stoke had 2 men sent off. I'm trying to remember who the player was who got sent off them. Was it? It wasn't Shaqiri, I don't think.
No, it wasn't.
But it was one of their new boys. But basically, it was Afellay. There was a tap on the face, and that was a straight red. So you can almost justify Costa getting a straight red. The thing that annoys me about this incident
which I think is a silly rule, by the way, that if you raise your hand, and that's not even the letter of the law.
That's not the law. That's not the rule. Violent conduct is the rule.
Yeah, but anyway, the thing that annoys me about this is the ref, Mike Dean, brings in both players, tells them, less of that, you two. You've had a bit of a shout of each other, you've had a few friendly hits, gives them both yellows. There's then a point where they both kind of have a go at each other again before walking off, and you can see the incident continuing between the 2 players before Gabriel kicks out. And in that situation, I just feel like the ref has to get the 2 captains together, because you could tell the game was boiling over at that point, right before half-time.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I thought, at the moment, do you know what Arsenal like here? And it was a situation where the leader for Arsenal at that point was Cech. And it's quite ironic that at Stamford Bridge, in a Chelsea-Arsenal game, Arsenal's key individual to try and defuse the situation was Petr Cech. But their captain is Santi Cazorla, right? And you can say if you think they're important or not important in terms of captains on a football team. But I'll tell you what, Chelsea would be a different team without John Terry in the last 10 years. And I think Arsenal really lack a leader. Just in general, there isn't a leader in that Arsenal team for me. I don't think Koscielny is. I think Cech is the leader. I don't see Cazorla and think, oh, that is a man that is going to push us to the next level or whatever. I just don't think he's the kind of guy that will be like, if you're in the trenches. Well, and the reason I bring this up is because Patrick Vieira, even Van Persie and Fabregas, right, Tony Adams, they'd be straight in there. If either of those 4 on the pitch, Gabriel is not getting sent off.
Well, what I was going to say was, I don't think that Arsenal actually lack a leader. I just think they lack any fight. There's very few times, and this was brought by a pundit like kind of last season maybe, or earlier on this year, that when a player gets fouled for Arsenal badly, no one crowds around the referee, no one kicks up a fuss and kind of sticks up for the player who's been fouled. They all kind of go, oh, that's a foul, and kind of that's that. If you look at the United team of the last 10 years, player gets fouled, there's always someone going to be in the ref's face, in the player who fouled their teammate's face, you know. And I think Gabriel is an example of a player who has basically taken on the burden of the whole team and perhaps what's been bottled up for the last however long and gone, what, I'm going to stick up for my mate here.
I think you've got a point about, I mean, you don't really want to see teams crowding around the referee, but you're right in the sense that they seem to not have a person who can kind of do the dark arts and be able to influence the referee in that kind of way. That's the kind of thing, like you say, a team like Chelsea away in a big game, it's a bit cynical, but sometimes it can swing the decisions in your favour. To be honest, I think the whole Costa incident is just ridiculous in so many ways. Ridiculous because Dean had a really, really poor performance refereeing, I thought, throughout the entire match. There was actually a challenge that Koscielny made a little bit after, it was probably a little bit before that, where he jumped in two-footed and Dean totally missed it and carried on with the game. But also Costa himself, I mean, we can talk about that a little bit, but I just think that he reminds me of Suarez in the way that he's constantly fighting that kind of battle with everyone in his head when he plays. But it just seems like he, unlike Suarez, gets too caught up in it. I feel like he's too worried about kind of just raging against everyone else on the pitch to worry about his football. I mean, you see Suarez kind of get up for it, and occasionally, obviously, it would end in him biting someone inevitably. But like he would often convert that into the kind of the high energy play that we know him for. And Costa, I think he just needs to slow that or calm that side of his game down a little bit. Keep it, because obviously it's an important part of him as a player, but not let it get too much of a part of him, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring Suarez up, because I think there's a key difference. People are now comparing the two, obviously. I think the thing with Suarez was he wasn't looking for it. I think Costa is looking for it. Costa's going on the pitch and he's thinking, I am looking for some sort of... I'm going to get in your head, but I'm going to make you look like the villain. What he got out of Gabriel is exactly what he's probably thinking about it pre-game. He's probably that kind of guy that goes out there, looks at Gabriel and goes, right, you're my target today. Whereas Suarez would kind of get kicked around a bit, he'd flail his arms around, he'd get touched in the back, go down. It wasn't... It was different in the fact that I really do think that Costa is looking for that aggressive fight, because he thrives in that. He loves that. Whereas Suarez is kind of like, he likes the underdog status of, go on and kick me, and then he'll then occasionally he'll have this ridiculous reaction of fighting someone.
I think Suarez sort of subconsciously and just does that kind of stuff without him really thinking about it, because he's so into the football. Whereas Costa is, like you say, it's a little bit more premeditated. And I think that might be because he hasn't started quite as well as he did last year.
Well, to be fair, he's only scored he scored 4 goals in his last 19 games in the league for Chelsea.
And by this point last season, he had about 5 or 6 goals already. So I think that's playing on his mind a little bit, and he seems to be resorting to those tactics a little bit more than he had been, as possibly as an attempt to get himself up for it, but also to kind of maybe take away a little bit from the fact that he's not playing too well.
I don't care that he does it, though. I just don't care. I'd rather he did that until he's breaking someone's leg or punching someone in the face. If he's having a little scratch and a little push and a little shove and talking a bit of shit, then whatever. I like. Do you know what? The Premier League is entertaining. It's the most entertaining league in the world. It might not be the best in terms of quality, but it's the most entertaining. And he's part of the show. He's one of the ringleaders. You watch Chelsea. I watched yesterday. I was hooked after I saw Costa go at Gabriel. I was like, come on, let's see what's going to happen here. Then I love it. I find it fascinating. Of course, there's a line, and he might cross it. But as I say, until he's seriously injuring a professional footballer or like a colleague, essentially, then.
I actually agree with that, and I don't like the way that you see pundits go after Costa as though he has broken someone's leg when they criticise him.
Shearer yesterday giving it, there's a line. I'm thinking, Shearer, your elbows were sharper than some knives, my friend. Like, come on. I'm not sitting there listening to this. Gary Neville going, his behaviour is disgraceful. I'm thinking, come on, Neville, enough of that. Come on.
I feel like with Costa there's a level of cynicism that you don't really see with other players, though.
Yeah, like the Suarez thing. I don't think what Suarez does is cynical and premeditated. Sometimes he gets carried away. I agree with that.
It's a bit more like Pepe. He's a bit like in the same way that Pepe. I bet that was a clash. Tell you what, in La Liga that was a clash when Costa and Pepe went on each other. It was Ramos and Pepe against Costa. He loved it. I bet he misses that, and he wants a bit of that. So he goes after Gabriel, who obviously ironically enough, is Brazilian. Costa was Brazilian, obviously, then represented Spain. So there was probably a little bit of that going back and forth, but.
I kind of feel like we've got lost on the original point, which is the fact that I think Mike Dean's... I feel like he's handled the whole thing wrong. I think he could have brought in the 2 captains. He could have not let it spill over. I think to send Gabriel off he gave him a straight red for the kick, which I don't really buy. if I'm honest, because I think he steps on his toes, maybe. I mean, at the end of the day, you see loads of little incidents like that in the penalty box, and I think he's got hooked up in the moment, my Dean. He's got the most, I think he's been in the top 4 for most cards given by a Premier League referee for like the last 5 years. He's a bit card friendly.
For an experienced referee, he didn't have as good a control on that game as you would expect. I think we should maybe talk about the football a little bit.
I don't think Gabriel's actions are justified, and I think you could say that he's silly for kicking out and he should get a red card. I just think in my eyes, given the fact Costa's clawed out Koscielny's eyes and then had a separate incident with Gabriel, those two could be seen as two yellow cards.
He can't have seen it though. He can't have seen it. I'll defend him. But
he must have seen him barge over Koscielny straight afterwards, which in itself you might go, oh, you know, Koscielny's gone down a little bit easy, but fundamentally he's charged chest first into Koscielny and bowled him over, which in itself could be a yellow card. So I think Costa could have had 3 or 4 yellow cards within the space of 5 minutes. In the end, he's got 1, and the ref's kind of... Because so many incidents happened one after the other before it actually got to the stage where the ref got control of the game and was able to give the bookings.
Well, he was pulled off, wasn't he, after he went for Oxlade-Chamberlain about, I don't know what time it was, about 75.
It was almost as though Mourinho knew it was going to...
Yeah, he was like, well, hang on, if you're out there for another 10 minutes...
And, the thing is, he hadn't actually been booked at that point. He wasn't on a yellow, but Mourinho pulled him off.
I think he was on a yellow.
He was on a yellow. He got a yellow for the Gabriel incident, which is what kind of annoys me, because he's basically given him 1 yellow for a sequence of events which could have been 3.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Sorry, John, I'm moving you on.
Continue. I don't like Mike Dean. I think he's lost control of this game. I think it could have been entirely avoidable. I think he's ruined the game with that sending off.
Well, and I come on to that then. They got the red card. Gabriel's gone. They make the change at half time, but it wasn't enough. Monreal is... I can't imagine he's supposed to be marking Kurt Zouma. It seems like a bad pairing. You've got to assume that Gabriel would be doing that job.
The thing is, Arsenal actually played quite well for the first 35 minutes.
You're right, they started excellently. I thought
started really well.
Doing really well.
And Jack's right in the sense that the red card did spoil the game a little bit, because although Chelsea were also better, they were pressing a lot higher, and you could tell that the win in the week for them against Maccabi Tel Aviv probably has kick-started their kind of season a little bit. Arsenal were the better team for the first half, and it's just the frustratingly kind of familiar Arsenal pattern against the top 4 teams, where they'll make little errors like that, like you say, Monreal marking Zouma, and it will cost them every time.
I was going to say, Arsenal haven't beaten Chelsea in their last 8 Premier League encounters. That's like 4 seasons where they've not...
I think they must be loving it. No one's talking about it.
I think they've got 3 draws from 8, so that's like 3 points from 8 games. It's Chelsea. If you want to be challenging for a title, which... I think Arsenal fans think that they should be challenging for a title. Perhaps the signings they've made and Wenger's kind of dealings say otherwise. Well, you have to be doing better than that. And I don't think they've scored against Arsenal in like the last 4 or 5 games.
5, yeah. Last 5 games.
Which is just mad.
And then, obviously, Hazard, well, the deflected goal goes in. And
Hazard did look more lively, though, again yesterday. Which is promising. And also, I think we should sort of maybe just give Oscar a quick shout out, because he's often the guy that gets chopped in the Chelsea front 4 when Mourinho wants to maybe play a little bit more defensively. He'll keep Willian and Pedro or Hazard around Costa and drop Oscar. But he played he played well in the week in the Champions League, and he seems to just quite quietly link the play in a way that doesn't really get noticed that much for Chelsea.
I thought he was pretty ineffective during the first half, but when Arsenal went down to 10, I thought he came to the game a lot more.
My favourite bit of this game was actually involving Oscar, and it was when Gabriel had been shown the red card and was going ballistic, and Oscar, international teammates trying to calm him down. It's like, come on, get off the pitch, mate. You can't change anything now.
Can you get off?
He does look, because Oscar does look kind of like the little kid of both teams in that situation. He looks like mini Diego Costa, doesn't he, really?
I thought it was an interesting game. I think in the upcoming weeks we'll talk a little bit more about Walcott playing up front and the Giroud situation, but we'll leave it for now because we've spent a long time on this. Another big game.
Wait, they shook hands, the managers too.
Oh, great. Who gives a shit?
Handshake gate is over.
I agree about that. Just quickly, the whole handshake thing is just so ridiculously out of proportion.
Just don't care.
Do you think that managers should shake each other's hands before and after a game? Because I kind of like it when they don't. It's a bit of a pantomime.
They can if they want. If they don't want to, then that's fine as well.
I think that part of me thinks they should, but if they don't, then okay, fine. I think afterwards maybe you should. But I'm not too bothered about it beforehand. I don't know. Anyway, Manchester City looked in scintillating form all season, and then the boys that beat the big boys, West Ham, turn up. West Ham have lost to Leicester and Bournemouth, but they've beaten Arsenal and City and Liverpool all the way from home. Yeah,
I think they're the first ever Premier League team to do that in one season. There's your facts of the week.
Since Chelsea in 05-06, yeah, that was the first team to do that.
Well, we said it, Callum, and we're continually proved right by this sort of this Bilic idea of he can get this. He can get these results, and we weren't surprised. I looked at it and just went,
"No, I wasn't surprised at all." And one of the questions actually on Twitter, I'll drop this one in now, which was from KYS123. Do it now on Twitter, Lenny. I should have just said that. So that for the fan show. Do you think West Ham can qualify for Europe? Now, while I don't think that's the case because it's similar to
second in the league now, they're going to the Champions League.
It's similar. It's similar to like Southampton the way they were last year. They will continually get those kind of results throughout the year, and really, what needs to change for them to finish in a top, potentially push the top six is to clean up those games against Bournemouth at home and those kind of matches. And if they could start consistently putting those away, they know that they have a big away performance in their locker now. When all their big players are fit,
the problem will be that these bigger home teams will start taking that into account. And they will have to adjust because it's not an accident anymore. If you do it 3 times, it's not a fluke. It's not like you're just putting in a big performance away from home against a big side. They are calculating this.
I do feel like every performance has been quite different.
It's been different in the sense
I don't know.
They've been playing in a slightly different way, but it's always been a reactive style of play that West Ham have taken to these big teams away from home.
Yeah, it seems to be very counter-attacking, and Payet is doing a fantastic job at starting every move.
And he is a master at linking those counter-attacks, playing the first time or long pass balls up the line into the channels that are needed to kind of release a counter-attack.
I do feel like this game though, West Ham were incredibly lucky. I don't think you can deny it, because they defended, at least from what I've seen. I saw both their game against Liverpool and was it Arsenal, the other one?
It was the Arsenal.
But they defended a lot deeper this game. They were a lot, which obviously you're going to be away against City. It's a bit of a different beast to kind of having Ings and Benteke up front against you or whatever. But They were
as much as a protest.
They were kind of trying to do that counter-attacking style, but Man City really didn't let them. Like, there was only really that one chance for Jalovic in the second half, which I think was awarded as a shot on target. And then the 2 shots and goal.
City had 27 shots.
As I put in the notes before this, on another, I wouldn't be too worried as a City fan. They could have had 5 on another day, and it was good for De Bruyne as well to score his first goal. I think
smart finish as well. That's what it's kind of what you expect Kevin De Bruyne. But
that's what he'll bring. I think they'll see a lot more goals like that. But I put Kolarov and Joe Hart in my fantasy team, thinking that 5 games, not conceded a goal, and they go and do that.
Well, Kolarov got subbed off.
So, yeah. Who did?
Kolarov got subbed off at the end, and they brought on a third striker in Kelechi Iheanacho. They were really going for the game at the end, City. Like, watching that game, I'm glad I wasn't a West Ham fan. Well, maybe I wish I was a West Ham fan, then I'd have less to worry about in my footballing life.
I'd like some more wins, that's good. But no, again, credit to Bilic. We seem to say every time they're going away against a big side. But it's not going to be, I guess to answer the question, it's not going to, those games still won't define their season, as Callum points out. It's going to be the games against the other sides sort of in and around them. Like if they're beating Swansea and Stoke, I know Stoke are having a rough time, but Swansea and Stoke and Southampton and Palace even, teams like that, then you know what, European football, 7th place or whatever, isn't a ridiculous thing to suggest.
What did you make of City? Because obviously they played Otamendi and they played Kevin De Bruyne.
I thought Otamendi, I know it's funny because obviously they've conceded 2. Neither were particularly his fault. I actually thought Otamendi looked really, really good. I don't know what the dream City partnership is. You'll assume it's Company and Otamendi because they've got
I was thinking Di Michaelis.
Di Michaelis and Mangala.
You say that though, but Mangala has been probably their standout defender this season. I know Company's come back to form, but Mangala's
it's a good problem to have, isn't it? Really,
especially after you've just lost the game. I mean, he can kind of do what he wants now, and it'll be justified in whatever he decides.
It should be said for City, just before we move on, that they've lost 2 in a row now, and we don't normally touch on the Champions League in the week. Perhaps we should in the future when it hots up a little bit. But they seem to struggle. I couldn't really understand the Juventus struggle. I'd just come back, actually. I was about to come back Ronaldo, and I did watch that game. And it's strange that every time they have those European hangovers, it seems to go against them. And And while obviously there's nothing to worry about, like I said, if you're a City fan, I would be sort of perplexed how that always seems to happen after the Champions League.
Okay, I guess if there's I know they've not started very well in Italy, but if there's a game to lose in your group, it's probably the games against Juve.
Yeah,
I think they won't be the games to define whether you.
I think they'll still qualify, but it's a difficult. Sevilla won as well, played quite well. It will be difficult, and you worry about City in Europe, and I'm not really sure what it is. I can't put my finger on it.
Okay, then moving on to another game. Newcastle 1, Watford 2. Now, Watford have started the season relatively well, I think. 9 points from 6 games. Are they still unbeaten? Am I right in saying they're still unbeaten?
No, I don't think that. I think the only unbeaten team is Leicester now in the league.
I feel like... Okay, well, regardless, Watford have had a good start to the season, and a team that haven't, Newcastle. We've not really spoken about Newcastle too much on ForTheFans so far this season, so I want to focus on them a little bit. On paper, their attacking lineup looks all right. And I think, so maybe if they bring a striker in, I know Mitrovic has been suspended, then they'll be okay. They've got Thorvin in, Wijnaldum, a couple of other players that you think quite highly of. But McLaren can't get it working, Keno. I want to retract. I think last week or 2 weeks ago I said that we shouldn't sort of give Pardew the England job until we've ruled out McLaren. I think I'd like to now rule out McLaren for the England job.
Tactically, what he's doing doesn't seem to be getting the best out. I mean, it's funny because, like you say, on paper, they should be of a similar level to the kind of the mid-table Stokes of this world. But
it's funny that you say Stoke, but then you look at them.
I know they're not doing well, but I think Stoke will be fine. But they should be higher than where they are, right? And he's sticking with the 4-2-3-1, playing like Colback and Anita and the holding two. And then yesterday, well, I'm not sure if he did it for the whole of yesterday, but for the first part of the season, he's been playing Cisse on his own up front when Mitrovic hasn't been there. Yeah. And Cisse is not the kind of striker that you can play on his own because he's a bit of a poacher. He won't run the channels for you that well. And you need to have him linking up with a player really who will knock it down.
Well, his best form was with Demba Ba, so
exactly, and McLaren is rigidly sticking to the 4-2-3-1, and they just seem a bit wooden. They seem wooden in the same way that the Villa seem wooden at the moment, and they're not. It's particularly at home where you're kind of expected to be on top of the team a bit more, especially with the way that the Geordies kind of shout at them a lot. They don't seem to be able to break teams down. And it seems to be quite easy to go to St James's, let that kind of rigid 4-2-3-1 just wash against your back four, and then hit them hard on the break, as Watford did. And yeah, like you say, Watford have looked good, and they've kind of gone below the radar, I think.
Yeah, I'm just going to read out to you the Newcastle starting 11, right? It is confusing to me that they've only got 2 points. So Krul, Yamat, Mbemba, Colaccini, Hadira, Wijnaldum, Colback, Thorvin, Sissoko, Perez, and Cisse. That, to me, sounds like a good side.
There's a lot of internationals in there.
The issue is, though, they all play as individuals. There's very little team spirit. It's a bit like Newcastle last year under Carver was one of the worst teams I've seen play in the Premier League.
Yeah, I go with that.
And when you actually read out those names, yes, there's a few names there, but a lot of them have remained the same. I thought it was interesting, actually. McLaren, after the game, basically said, I'm trying to change a lot. 2.5 months hasn't been enough time, really, to do that. And you look at Newcastle, and they've won 3 games of their last 25 after a good run in November last year. Now, the thing that annoys me about...
Archie saying that was.
But the thing that annoys me about this is McLaren's basically going, yeah, we've won 3 of 25, so it's going to be tough for us. I'm sat there thinking, well, you've won none in 6. So your record's worse than it was under Carver at the moment.
You were brought in to fix this, Steve. You can't just say, time.
To be honest with you, though, I think the problems at the end of last season were so bad for Newcastle that as long as they're okay this year, and they'll stick with McLaren, hopefully, that I think this time next season we won't be having this conversation.
I feel like they should have done a lot more in terms of moving players on.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of players still in that Newcastle side who aren't that bothered. And I think that's of contrast to some of the teams like Watford, who have actually signed in a lot of players. And I had this worry that perhaps they were just signing in a load of mercenaries. But they've kept the top 2 the same in Nicolo and Dini. And the team behind them's gelled together really nicely, and they're playing really well.
Yeah, we're seeing a very good example of bringing the right players to a squad and it working. We're not seeing that at Stoke. We won't go into the Stoke game now, but Stoke have brought in players and it's not worked. And we keep mentioning them as being sort of this average Premier League team. Well, at the moment they're not. But Watford are kind of doing that role of being the team that turn up every single week, work hard, and not only work hard, but put in a good performance. You've mentioned Igalo in recent weeks, Jack. has been a very important player for Watford, and once again, he's getting the goals.
Well, he got 2, didn't he? And Deeney, didn't he get both assists? Him and Deeney, the dream team.
Definitely got the second one, I think.
I think maybe it was after the first week of games I talked about the fact that I was really impressed and happy that Watford were playing with 2 strikers and really going for it, even if one was playing slightly off the other. And to go away from home to Newcastle, yes, Newcastle not in the greatest form, that's still pretty bold, and I don't think you'd perhaps see, for example, Norwich doing that in the same way that Watford had done it, and it's worked dividends for them. They scored 2 goals before half time. They looked comfortable in the game, and both goals were really nice finishes as well.
They're an interesting side because I think us, like most people, don't know much about the squad because it's been a squad that's been sort of pieced together and put together throughout the summer. It wasn't like they brought in 4 guys at once. It was kind of like players kept coming in from different places. But credit to the manager. I mean, no one's really talking about them as being. They're a difficult team to play against. Evidently, they're a difficult team to play against, and you've got to credit the manager and the players for gelling so quickly. I think it was noted actually. There's a guy Lee, you know Fox in the Box, Jack, who is a season ticket holder, and he says that despite all these new players being brought in, they all speak English, and that's a common theme throughout every single signing. That it's not like, and I guess the example is sort of this mentality at Newcastle, where there's a lot of French players who are sort of banded together, whereas Watford, it seems more like a community has come together at that team. And we talk about the lack of gel in that Newcastle team. It's certainly not a problem that Watford are having right now.
I think the issue as well for Newcastle is because of how poor their form's been. It's difficult to get those spirits raised in the same way.
Well, like you say about the playing staff, I think too many of those, like you say, have been scarred by what went on last season and the season before that, actually, because they didn't have great form then either. And it probably would have been a better idea for McLaren to move on a few more of those and take the hit in form in the short term and maybe in kind of team chemistry, take that hit with the hope of kind of getting rid of some of those players that were so kind of such a part of the terrible run that they had last year. Just quickly on Watford, I think you're right in the sense that, and this goes for kind of the media as well, people don't really know about their squad and they don't really know too much about the manager either. And I think that's stopping people from giving Watford the credit that they probably do deserve. And I think in a few months' time, maybe, when people have got to know their players a bit more. I know they do have Premier League and established players in there, but once we've got to know their squad a bit more, I think they will start to get a bit more attention. So it's quite impressive what Sanchez is doing there.
I don't feel like McLaren's the right guy for Newcastle. I think you look at the jobs that he's done at other teams. Probably the only other occasion where you could say he's taken over a team going through a massive transition period with a bit of a mismatch of squads was when he went to Wolfsburg. Yeah, and I think he lasted maybe did he last the whole season?
It was.
I don't think he did the whole season, did he?
I think he came.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you find out. I think he's the kind of manager that will now he will take the blunt of it this year because Ashley spent money, so it's quite difficult for the Newcastle fans to throw. He doesn't care about the club. He's not invested in the club. Well, this year he has. Now, admittedly, he might have appointed the wrong man, but I don't know. Jack, was that man? How long was that man at Wolfsburg for?
He lasted until February.
So that, and to be honest, I don't know about you two, but I can see the same thing happening this year. I thought he'd bring in more Championship players, actually, because it's a league that you'd think he'd know quite well after his time at Derby, but he didn't. He brought
and Forest. People forget about his time at Forest. That didn't last long either, did it?
With good reason. Where do you want to go next? Does anyone? I'll let you. Do you know, boys? Pick a game. Where do you want to go?
Let's go to United. I know we talk about United a lot.
I think we should quickly touch on United and then also go down to the south coast, Bournemouth versus Sunderland.
Okay, do you know what? I like your geography there, Callum. I'm enjoying it. Okay,
I like your geography.
United, Anthony, I like your geography.
That could be printed on a shirt.
Martial. I feel like I'm going to have to call him Martial now. It seems like that's his name.
I'm going to call him Henri Jr.
Okay, Henri Jr. Drink. He's scored 2 more. I mean, 35 million, what a snip. I'll tell you what it does mean, though, folks. They'll be paying more for him the more he keeps doing this. But, another good performance, Keno. I know you didn't see much of the game. You may have seen the goals. But are you surprised that he started this well, or is it kind of...
Well,
is it another case of the unknown, a bit like Watford?
I'm not surprised that he's come in and had such an instant impact because he's obviously very talented. Whether or not he'll kind of find the longer term settling in period in England a bit more difficult. Remains to be seen, but I think that might be what might happen actually. He'll kind of it's easy for him to come in right now, just be told to go out and play by Van Gaal, and have that kind of impact, because everyone, I don't think anyone said he was a bad player or he hasn't got massive potential, because he has. I think the fee kind of made people question whether he was that good, but don't make no mistake, he is a fantastic player and he will be. But over time, maybe later on the season, around Christmas time, maybe a little bit after, he will have a dip in form, and it might continue for a little while he just gets used to playing throughout the whole year in England.
At the moment, it looks as if he's playing on instinct, and it's when he gets...
Precisely, yeah.
So it's almost like he gets more accustomed to England, he gets more accustomed to Manchester United, and at that point, Van Gaal's telling him that you've got to try to do more of this, you've got to try to do more of this. And if he's thinking about his game more, that might be the sort of thing that hinders him, because right now, I think it's been said that Morgan Schneidlin is the interpreter. I'd like to think they spent 25 million on bringing in an interpreter. That would, like, in the knowledge...
That would be a very Ed Woodward thing to do, wouldn't it, really?
Would that be the most expensive interpreter of all time?
Yeah.
That's what we've got to ask ourselves. Jack, have you got more on that?
Well, I'm not on the interpreter front, but I was actually going to... I don't know much about my footballing interpreters, unfortunately. Okay. But
I reckon Pochettino's has got an expensive interpreter.
It's Lamela, isn't it? They brought Lamela in a season earlier for Pochettino.
At Southampton, when he had the interpreter on telly for a good 6 months to a year.
It was like his lawyer, wasn't it? It wasn't really like it.
I like to believe it was like a family friend who just kind of volunteered.
But the best thing about that was Pochettino could speak English. He just chose not to.
Yeah.
So he could be misquoted, which I love.
Can I get my little quiz question in now?
What, for being Kino?
Yeah. This is a curveball. Right. So before Martial, there's been two other players score in their first two Premier League appearances for Manchester United. Can you name the two players who scored in their first two games?
Can. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, go on then.
Makeda and Zaha. I saw it on Twitter. I'm sorry.
Wow. Twitter ruined the quiz. Well, I hope you got them at home before Ben shot it down.
I'm sorry, I follow some very educated people on Twitter.
Well, I was going to say Ruud van Nistelrooy, so...
Well, yeah.
Can we talk about the second goal? Because it was a fantastic assist for Martial by Yoshida. Great pass by the Japanese player.
Your man.
My talisman.
Your man, Yoshida.
I know that I'm not meant to bring this up, but well done, Japan, in the Rugby World Cup. Just got to wave my little Japan...
Lovely moment. I don't know if anyone saw it. Lovely moment.
Can we talk about it? I know we're a footballing podcast, but I'd like to think we embrace the wider sporting world.
You've heard it here, guys. You've heard it here. Jack has just said on a football podcast, can we talk about the Rugby World Cup?
I don't just want to talk about Japan and the fact that they beat South Africa.
It's been a good week for Japanese sport.
Yeah.
Right, Yoshida's back pass, Jack.
Beautiful.
Not good. But United win again, and I mean, they're second in the league, they're behind City, good for them. I mean, I've got no more to say on it, really.
It's funny because I think everyone sort of realises that they're not really gelling and they're not playing that well. There are a few questions on Memphis, actually, which we could touch on from Twitter if you want to just quickly do that before we move on. Jason Rogers asks, what have you guys made of Memphis so far this season? Seems to be taking time to settle in. And Connor Flaherty says, why does Memphis still start ahead of Young when he's not played that well? Simple answer to that one is that he cost 35 million, so he has to, at least for the first few months. And I think the case with Memphis settling in is a similar thing to Martial.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's already thinking too much about what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think
not instinctive.
Yeah, and he's actually looked really good in the Champions League when he's especially against PSV in the week. Scored a fantastic goal, and he scored another good one against whoever they played in the qualifier. Club Brugge, yeah. So he seems to have been okay playing in a more familiar surroundings against teams that he might be more used to. But I'll give him lots of time. He's going to be a fantastic player. And
I agree. I think he'll be great.
The same as Martial. It will come good.
I think it's a tricky transition for him. I think it's slightly different to Martial because he's come from a team where he was the focal point. He was the player.
Yeah, true.
Of that team, he was the guy getting the goals. He was the player who all the play came from. But he's now gone to Manchester United, and not only is it a very, very different task in terms of playing in the Premier League, But there's a significant difference about, being that talismanic player of your club and then coming to a club which is essentially full of talismans and trying to make your stamp. And I almost feel like, as you guys mentioned, he's thinking too much about what he's doing. He's trying a little bit too hard, perhaps, at times.
Yeah. Well, at PSV, he could make a mistake, couldn't he? And he'll still be the star man. At Manchester United, you don't get that many chances. So if you make a mess of it, there's going to be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and right now that talisman is obviously Rooney, you would say, in the team.
Rooney!
Yeah, but England's greatest...
No goals or assists so far this season.
No?
But he's got goals where it counts, Jack, for the country. But obviously Rooney's the talisman right now. But I think people do sort of see Memphis as a kind of future Ronaldo-type figure in terms of his impact on the team. And it'll be interesting to see if he can develop in that similar way.
I'm gonna link here very quickly. Manchester United 3, Southampton 2, great result. Speaking of next potential Real Madrid candidates, you've mentioned Memphis Depay. I genuinely think, and I mean this without an ounce of sarcasm, that Son Heung-min could be a potential world beater in 2 years' time, 3 years' time.
I wanted to talk about Southampton, but we've moved on now.
We were on the south coast. What about my geography?
No, I'm really... Well, we've gone to London.
We've gone to Korea now.
Son Heung-min today was the best player. Crystal Palace have started the season terrifically well. I think they've won like 10 in 12.
Pardew effect.
Yeah, well, and Son Heung-min's turned up, and he has. I'll tell you what, he's brilliant. I love him. I think he's great. Well, I know I said Depay is like signing of the summer. I might take it back.
So you think he could be the player who?
He's only played 2 games.
Strengthen Daniel Levy's relationship with Real Madrid.
Honestly, in a few years' time, I can see a huge move for this guy. I think he's fantastic. He's got everything.
He's only 22, isn't he?
Yeah, we should say at Talk Spurs on Twitter did ask the question, what do you think of Son, and do you think he'll be a success by the end of the season?
Yes, yes, I do. I think he'll be. If Spurs get top 4,
I think Ben likes him. Everyone,
he will be the man that's got him it, because I tell you, he's that good.
God, Ben, this is like Jack and Danny Ings.
Honestly, I think
Danny Ings is better.
I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think he's
exactly
what Spurs have missed.
I haven't seen as much of him for, in the 2 games that he's played for Spurs, but I did see him a few times for Leverkusen last season, and he's the kind of player that will work well with Eriksen as well. Might make them a little bit more direct where they need to be, where Eriksen doesn't offer the pace and sort of penetration. And Eriksen will be the man to supply those killer balls, and Son might be able to flit in around the striker a bit more. So it could work well for Spurs and give them the kind of the penetration that I don't think they've had really this season.
It cost 22 million. I'm telling you now, 60 million bid from Real 2 years' time.
Can I throw like a little kind of thing in here? And I don't want to play kind of devil's advocate or be a little bit cynical, but I just think Spurs have spent so much on players since Bale left. One of the players has to come good eventually. They've had Lomelo's...
Eriksen's been...
But Eriksen hasn't been as good as I think perhaps people expected him to be. Like, he didn't get that many assists last year. I think he got like 11 assists and no goals. It was
an important player for them going forward.
I think he is. Maybe I'm drawing too many conclusions from having seen them twice last year at White Hart Lane, one of which was a defeat against West Brom at home, which was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. But I just feel like Spurs have spent so much on players. One of them's got to come good eventually. And who knows, maybe Son is this bloke suddenly going to act as kind of a catalyst in this gel that kind of brings all these players that they spent a lot of money on together. And I just feel like, as if I was a Spurs fan, I'd just be thinking, thank bloody God we seem to have got a player who's worth the money we've pumped in and actually is... As much as Eriksen's done a great job at Spurs, I don't feel like he's been an impact player. He's not been a player who's kind of carried them to that next level, whereas Son kind of looks like he could be that player who perhaps with, a few of the smart...
Each other, though. I think they both need each other. I think you're right, but I think Son is the kind of player that Eriksen will love playing with, and I think the reverse.
I just think Son, the kind of performances he's put in so far, I watched the European game that Spurs were in, it was very much like when he played at Leverkusen, where Leverkusen don't really have that many strong players around them. They've got a few good names here and there, but he was able to carry that team to that kind of next level and really have moments. And I was kind of surprised it took this long for a team to pick him up, because he's kind of been a player over the last 2 or 3 years who's really he's looked a little bit above the level that he was playing at, and I was surprised no one took a punt on him sooner. It's a bit like De Bruyne at Wolfsburg.
Well, he'd only been there for a year, but you're right about Leverkusen, and I'm surprised that someone hasn't come in for Calhanoglu either, but his attitude is a little bit questionable.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but so you're right. Son, Bellarabi as well. They've had a good team, and Son's been one of the key players in that. And I think you could be right about him giving that kind of push on Spurs, which they kind of need. They need a bit of a kick up.
He's got 2 years, and then Real will be in.
Well, yeah, Ben's made it now.
It's got to be quick.
I think he's going to go to Barca.
I mean, he could, Jack. He could play at any of the top clubs.
She just made loads of predictions. I know the transfer window's over, and we've gone past that phase.
Ribery and Robin will be retired by then. Hazard will have forced his move to PSG. At any of the top clubs, I tell you, let him go anywhere. He's brilliant.
Shall we get the train back to the south coast?
It's a bit expensive. Sure. Do you want to go to Bournemouth? Is that where your next holiday is?
I'm staying in London, but you carry on. Me and Son are going to have a great time.
I think you should come down to see that Matt Ritchie goal, because it was fantastic.
Tell me about it. Entice me.
Can I just? I'm going to entice you. It was a thunder bastard.
It was a thunder bastard. It was kind of one of those that sometimes just look a bit too good to be true. Like the way he took it, kind of shoulder height volley off his chest. It was brilliant. And Callum Wilson as well, got another goal, which I think, is he the top scorer in the Premier League at the moment? I think
he might be at this point. Is that 4 or 5 for him now?
I think he's got 5. So you could have a look. But and I wrote again on the notes here. Could it be another case of... because a lot of people are kind of question marks over Wilson and whether he'd score the goals that Bournemouth needs. Do you think it could be another case of maybe the kind of championship striker coming up, like kind of Grant Holt and having I think
he's the next Ings or Austin.
Do you think so?
Yeah. I think he won't be beyond their levels. But he'll be...
To be fair, you think Costa's level right now, so I give up. Can I say something controversial about the Ritchie goal? It was far too clean to be goal of the season, and that makes me sad.
It needed it in off the post, didn't it? Or something?
Crossbar, and bounces on the ground and hits the back of the net. Then
he catches it so perfectly that it's like, I don't know. People are going to look at it and go, "Yeah, great strike," and that'll be it. But yeah, someone will score a goal this season, which is some sort of curler from 50 yards, or something. Oh, can I just say, speaking of ridiculous goals, the Florenzi goal against Barca.
I mean, so much has been said about that, but yeah, fantastic.
I don't want us to let a weekend.
Was that it? Just mention the fact that we do know that happened, and it was a good goal.
We know that happened.
That was good.
It gets for the fans nod of approval. Everyone nod right there.
5 seconds for Florenzi. Just wait. Okay, there we go. Moving on to what should we talk about now? Liverpool. Do you want to rant about?
I love the fact you've gone on about having to go to the south coast, and we've talked about it for a minute. Talked about the goal, and then that's that. Do we not want to talk about Yunus Kabul?
No, definitely not. Liverpool won, Norwich won.
He got sent off. You right, Ben? Do we want to talk about this game?
It's the 20th of September, 2015. Dear Brendan. Hi, Brendan. Me again. You might remember. I'll just cue in Colin you missed last week, but go back and listen. You'll understand what's going on now. Yeah, good today. Norwich came, newly promoted, but you decided to play the diamond. Well, we thought it was the diamond, didn't we? Until you put 3 at the back. Good to see Sacco back in this week as well. Cheers for that. That was good. Benteke at half-time. Don't know what that was about. I mean, if he's injured, fair enough. But then Danny Ings came on. He scored, bailed you out of trouble, didn't he? But really, Brendan, our 1-1, after spending 270 million in the last 3 years against a newly promoted side at home, especially off the back of a defeat to Manchester United, not fucking good enough, my friend. Jack?
Just a bit sad. I feel like I've hit it. Okay, so we both, my whole family, half my family support Norwich. So I'm going to get a lovely phone call later on tonight, no doubt, talking about the game. Where do you start? I feel like you've hit the nail on the head. The formation was wrong. I actually feel like we didn't play as badly as I thought we were going to play in the first half.
We played well. We were the Mesut Ozil of teams because we played well, but it's not effective if you don't win. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Pointless. I'd rather play shit and win, Jack. Okay, just to clarify everyone, still don't want him to leave. Not yet.
I do.
But, Callum, how do you see it from an outsider perspective? I feel like me and Jack have done this to death.
We did this last week. We got very angry last week, and I feel like the glimmer of hope here...
I'm going to walk away for a bit, actually, because I can't even listen to
the glimmer of the hope is the fact we played with 2 strikers as strikers.
I think you're right. where do I sort of?
I love the fact you're sighing as if you're a Liverpool fan who's like.
I agree.
Impact. I guess. Oh, I don't know.
I find it hard to sort of see that after, like you say, after spending almost 300 million in the last 3 years, that and you do have the fifth. I think it's the fifth or sixth highest wage bill. So maybe you're finishing about where you should be, but it does seem like, especially since the Liverpool amazing season of 2 years ago, that they've gone backwards. And if I was a fan, I would be worried that Rodgers isn't the right man to right this kind of regression. I don't know what you think, Jack.
I don't know if Ben's back. He's not. He's gone. He's long gone. What he's actually gone to do is grab some food. But anyway, what I want to moan about is just how hopeless it all seems, because it just feels like there's no cutting edge. We had chances this game. Coutinho should score. It should happen.
Oh, don't talk about that.
It was a horrific miss.
Yes, it was horrific. Because he has 3 options, right? Score, pass it, or miss. He chose the miss option, Jack.
I know, Ben. It's okay.
It's not okay because it's annoying.
I want to cuddle you here, Ben, and just be like, it'll be okay, Ben. Just wait. But it's not going to be okay.
Something changes. Nothing's changing.
Well, what do you think should change in that? Should it be the manager?
Well, it's going to get to the point, Keno, where it's just gone on too long. And then they've got no option but to sack him. The only option.
So many other things have changed. The entire backroom staff was completely overhauled in the summer. Rodgers at this point can't use the excuse of gelling because it's been 6 bloody games, and you look at other teams who have brought in players, and there's been improvements. My worry here is the fact that we've not really seen any change over the course of this season so far. And to be honest, Rodgers is lucky that he's not staring down the barrel of a loaded gun, because if they don't get that win against Bournemouth under kind of controversial circumstances, and you don't get that last-minute thunder bastard by Coutinho against Stoke, Liverpool, well, they're sat at bottom of the table with Sunderland and Newcastle.
And I think that you mentioned the staff leaving in the summer. I'm not sure I like that, because it's it's basically like a warning shot at the manager. It's like, you'll be next. And I don't think...
No. Just to clarify, sorry, Keenan, I hate to jump in, but I want to clarify. He chose to change his backroom staff. Brendan did. FSG said, you know what, Brendan, do what you like. So now, when it all goes wrong, they can go, we let you do whatever you wanted, and you messed it up. And it's like, I'm not comfortable with owners that, and I think FSG have done quite a good job backing managers, but I'm not comfortable in then basically saying, go on, Brendan, go and do whatever you want, and taking a £100 million risk on getting the money for Sterling, getting the money for Sturridge, and letting him spunk it on players which frankly don't give enough of a shit.
Wait, have we sold Sturridge?
Sorry, did I say Sturridge? Yeah. Suarez.
Sturridge was back, though. Should we talk about that? Was the glimmer of hope?
Right, I mean, he's not fit. He's evidently not fit. Why start him in a game where he's not fit? Ings came on and showed more in his half than he did for Sturridge his first half. He's just not fit yet. Play him in a reserve game. Get him back. They talk about getting him back slowly, right? They've rushed him back for this game because they're terrified of the fan pressure that's going to be levelled at them in the next few weeks. So they rush Sturridge back. Play him don't rehabilitate him for 3 months and then start him in a Premier League game straight away.
It hasn't worked either, has it? Because the idea was get Sturridge on, get to goal, we win the game comfortably against Norwich, fan pressure's off.
That was the dream.
The fact he's been rushed back and then we've drawn. And
anyway,
I mean, I
just don't want to talk about it. I want to finish by saying Norwich were great. Alex Neil, again, another away performance that he can be very proud of. Norwich knew the weak points of Liverpool and they exploited them. Simon Mignolet's made a sponge, so that's fucking pointless as well. Sorry, this is going definitely...
Can I just say, the only thing that can make this worse is the fact that I just have this horrible feeling Liverpool are going to lose to Carlisle in this week.
Well, Henderson's out for 2 months. I mean, that's as big a loss as any player have lost in the last 2 years.
I've just realised it's Villa-Liverpool next week.
I know.
Oh, well,
no, Sherwood's on suicide watch and he'll still beat Liverpool.
That's a nice segue. That's a nice segue because it means I can talk about the absolute dross that I saw on Saturday, which was... well, there's not really too much to say. I mean, if there's anything to sort of go by these two teams, it'll be a terrible game at the weekend between Villa and Liverpool because we weren't... I couldn't get really annoyed at the Villa because we weren't like truly terrible at something. We were just consistently below average at every aspect of our play against the Albion, and they didn't have to do anything The goal was really scrappy. Fine, Berahino got his goal.
Should we talk about the goal? The fact he's played after 18 days after saying, "I can play again."
I mean, yeah, and that was almost good in a way because it meant that he was the story and not how bad the Villa were, because we were awful. And I said to you before, I'll let you know when I'm worried about relegation with the Villa. I'm not that worried yet. But I will, I'll update the cast and the listeners.
It's going to get to week 37 and you're going to be bottom of the league, not worried. But Keno, you've gone down, not worried.
Not worried. No, I trust Timmy.
Part of me worries because I like Sherwood and I like what they've tried to do over the summer, and I'm not going to sort of go back on what I said a few weeks ago about the way the squad's been revamped, because I think that's good. And it will take time for them to gel, and they will come good at some point.
Sound like Rodgers.
But I don't want the media and the fans to turn on Sherwood too quickly, because I feel like they will do against a person like him, and that could mean that the results get even worse and he makes silly decisions. So I'm just hoping that we can kind of go through this awful sort of run of form that we're on under the radar enough to when we do turn it around, because I think we will, it'll seem like it's kind of fresh and no one will really care. But
yeah. A good one for West Brom, though. I think West Brom have started the season okay. Actually, I thought they'd struggle a lot more this year. But
like they showed when we played them twice in a week in February, March in the League Cup, they got awful again. They're a really bad team. But I think that kind of reflects the sort of standard of the bottom half of the Premier League. Really,
I'd love a bad team that wins. I'm sick of this.
So last week, Keno, you did miss the game between Villa and Leicester. Now we won't go back to that too much. I don't know if you want to fill us in on what happened, but then we have got the Leicester game, which I think is the last game for us to cover. But I want to hear your thoughts on that game too.
I was by the pool, sipping my my mojito. And I had my sun hat on, and I was checking Twitter.
Sun hat in the pool. Bold.
And no. I was sunbathing at this point, and because I'm quite pale, it sort of covered my shoulders, so it's
all
right.
Nice. Tell us about the. All right, Jesus.
And I was refreshing Twitter, and I was following it, and I saw the Grealish goal on Vine, as you do, and I was jubilant. And then as soon as the first goal went in, and after following the Villa for almost 20, all my life, you just know what's going to happen. And I didn't. And at that point, my 3G went, so I couldn't refresh it anymore. And the first goal had gone in. Was it Vardy who scored the first one? I think it might have been. And I just didn't. I knew exactly what was going to go on. And the thing is, it was such a good week that I couldn't get mad at it. So I was quite glad in a way that happened while I was away. But I'm sure you spoke about it a little bit.
We did, don't you?
We spoke about it. I would say we spoke about it.
It doesn't surprise me.
But yeah, Leicester a 2-2 from being 2-0 down. Claudio Ranieri, he's promised them ice creams if they get a clean sheet. Oh, not ice cream, sorry, pizza to get a clean sheet.
Can I play for Leicester?
I mean, yeah, that's your dream job.
Shall I ring up? Can I have pizza? If you keep clean sheet, I can do that. Sign me up.
What are your qualifications? I just love pizza. So you'll play well? Absolutely.
I'll give it my all.
Stoke, though. I mean, I think we'll talk about Stoke next week. Does Stoke have a big game next week for us to talk about? I feel like Stoke is a very interesting topic that we've not covered yet, or that we will do. We did get a question about Stoke, though.
It is interesting because, we've bigged them up a lot, and I think everyone else has, in the kind of, who have been commenting on the sort of changes that have been made. It's admirable what Hughes is trying to do, and like I say, in the similar way to what I just said about the Villa, let's give him time, because I think it'd be silly to sort of say that it's not working so early. And there have been flashes, like particularly the Bojan was back, that was good, and it was a lovely little pass from Arnautovic for the goal, for Bojan's goal, and they have had little moments that you can see what they can do. I think it will just be a case of letting the players gel. Really. See, and I think some of the results might be quite...
I have this growing worry for Stoke, because they kind of strike me as this kind of slightly old rundown house, and in this last few transfer windows they've kind of got the brand spanking new furniture, new TV, Trevor, what else you could have, a new sofa. Not that I've got one of those.
Tell us about your sofa, Jack. This is just a good little anecdote for the end of the podcast.
My sofa. I don't want to call out the company yet, but I've had a sofa sat and assembled in my house.
Next week, the title of the company is going to be the title of the podcast is going to be the company.
All I'm going to say is, over a week ago, I was meant to have this sofa assembled. It's currently not assembled, spread across my entire room because they've given me the wrong parts. But anyway, the point I was going to make with Stoke is they're kind of like this old room, and they've brought in all this new stuff, and everyone's getting excited. Oh, new TV, new sofa. But the reality of it is what's kind of sat behind them, what all this stuff sat in, is still a fairly old kind of club. And Stoke have been a stable Premier League team, but you look at the players they brought in, players like Shaqiri, And I can't help but wonder, would their team have been better strengthened kind of more widely, with lesser players? Because I look at the back, Butland, good keeper, young. I feel like he hasn't perhaps reached the potential that people thought he might.
Well, to be fair, though,
he's had a great season so
he's
far.
He's a very young for a keeper, and I think the fact that he's getting regular Premier League football now as a first choice, he'll come good, and I've got no doubt that he'll make a big move.
I guess my worry here is you've got players like Shaqiri and Arnautovic, but then you've got players alongside them: Crouch, Odowingie, Stephen Ireland, Whelan. They're players who you associate with a low-end Premier League team.
Do you think they've tried to change too much then, or they're trying to go too much too fast? I feel
like it's a bit too much too fast. I feel like Hughes has done a great job there so far, and for name's gone from my head now. Guy with baseball caps. Pulis, thank you. To stable him in.
I love that. The guy with the baseball cap.
Well, you knew who he was.
Could have gone with anything. Guy with baseball caps.
But anyway, the job that he did at Stoke, and then the thing with Hughes, I guess, is the fact he has a bit of a rep for doing this with teams.
Yeah.
So did it a bit with Blackburn. Was it City where he didn't quite make it happen too?
Could you see him being sacked after 10 games, just really out of the blue?
Absolutely not. But I think it will be. He could be sacked at the end of the year if they have an underwhelming season. Because the Stoke is a very it's well run, and it's quite a closed shop in terms of the ownership. I think the family have owned it for 20 years or so, and they've spent a lot of money for them this summer and last year on Hughes. And they might give him another year, because I don't think they'll make a mid-season sacking. And it'll be interesting to follow throughout the season, actually. This will be one of the more interesting teams to follow in terms of development, because there's been so much fanfare about the changes that they've made. And I think you could be right, Jack, that they've tried to change maybe a bit too fast.
It reminds me of Bolton. And Bolton in the Premier League, where they kind of had to prep up for a UEFA Cup campaign.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for retaining some of the philosophy that's kept you as a stable team. And I think a lot of managers and fans think that to jump up the league and make a big jump from 10th to 6th, say, and get into the Europa League, you have to sign 5 or 6 or 7 players from Europe who are kind of quite like European class. But it might be better and I think a team like Swansea are kind of testament to this, to improve a little bit more gradually. And make sort of smaller, more incremental changes to your squad over time and edge your way up there.
West Ham are doing that as well.
They are doing that. And the move to the Olympic Stadium will give another kind of boost in their kind of progression. And that's a good point, actually, about West Ham. Since they've got promoted back to the Premier League, it's been quite a gradual progression further up the league, and they're inching up there. And I think Stoke might have tried to make that jump too fast under Hughes. And it'll remain to be seen how they'll develop under that.
I'll tell you what, the next 5 games for Stoke are Bournemouth, Villa, Swansea, Watford, Newcastle. That is a big October right there, let me tell you.
Yeah, and it'll be, like you say, it'll be a developing story, and we'll kind of have to follow it and see how it goes.
Because I think it's a little bit too early to judge a team like Stoke. I know that seems a bit weird, but they've been in the Premier League as a stalwart for so long that you just expect that at some point it's going to pick up. If it's going to pick up, it's got to be in the next 5 games, because those are all winnable for a Stoke side. So we'll have to wait and see. And that, gentlemen, there was a Swansea-Everton game that ended 0-0, but I think that just about brings us to the end. Anything else you want to wrap up with?
Questions?
Of course.
There are a few questions. We've kind of woven them into the show, which was quite nice.
We're so professional.
It was planned perfectly.
We were professional until you decided to walk out in the Liverpool run, Ben. But,
no, it wasn't. I was in the room. I just went and laid on the bed.
I think I had to lay down for a bit after that game.
That's what it does to you. Anyway, Mr. Kingy on Twitter says,
friend of the show,
and friend of the show, and this kind of touches on what we've just spoken about. At For the Fans show, who do you think will be the first manager to be sacked / quit?
Shall I say Hughes?
Do you think so?
I don't think that's impossible at this point.
No, it's not.
I just think okay, fine, Mark Hughes.
I think he has a bit of a rep for just doing this with teams. I'm going to say McLaren. I can just see him losing the dressing room completely and them just kind of going winless like for 10, 12 games, and he's gone.
I agree.
Kino, it's such an obvious answer here, Kino. There's a third man that you have to say.
I'm not going to say it.
No, not Timmy.
Do you not think so?
No. He spent too much.
See, and that's what I think about Hughes as well, actually. And again, I think I said this before when McLaren first came in. I'm worried that because of his past reputation, especially with the England job, that the media will turn on him very quickly. And although his results might not be as bad as some other managers in the same position, maybe Tim Sherwood, maybe we're a point below Newcastle in a few months' time, he might be the first to go because of the kind of reputation he has. And especially with the fans up there and how they might turn on him quickly. Who were you referring to?
Well, I think this is the biggest vote of confidence that Dick Advocate's had since his wife was bought some flowers by the Sunderland fans.
Yeah, I mean, he was even saying last night in the interview for Match of the Day that he was having to consider his position, and so should the players.
Dear.
Can I throw in one more curveball? I don't think this will happen, but it's a bit of a long shot. But I think Koeman.
No.
Southampton have got
too much. Done too much good.
I don't know if he has though.
See, if we hadn't have just had the week we've had in terms of results, you could have maybe made a case for Jose Mourinho as well.
I just think with Southampton's big strength and the reason for a lot of their success in their recent Premier League years has been their defensive performances. Right now, they're leaking goals left, right, and centre.
Yeah, that is very true, but I don't think it'll impact their results too much to the point where Koeman might get the sack. I think they have enough quality to beat the teams around them and below them, which means that they will be okay. I'll just do another question as well before we go.
All right, last question. This is it. I'm calling it.
Last question from... Oh, that could have been all the questions, actually.
No pressure.
That was the last question.
Well, I want a question from you, Callum, please. I need a question.
No, I can't.
Tell him, question.
You put him on the spot now.
I know, but he said he was going to promise us a question, Jack, and I demand a question. You weren't here last week. I want some sort of question.
This is the end of the roller coaster. I don't know what to say.
This is the end of the roller coaster. This has got very... I can't even talk now.
We should end this. We should really end this right now.
Here's a question to answer on air right now. Shall we cover some of the Champions League next time?
Let us know. Like
comment section on Twitter, let us know. Can I say thank you to the people that tweeted us saying they didn't know me and Jack made Football Manager videos. I mean, thanks for sticking with us. I mean, it was baffling. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end, gentlemen. From Callum and Jack, say your goodbyes.
Bye.
See you later.
Oh, it sounds sad, doesn't it?
I'm sorry, I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm allowed to be sad at the moment.
And from me, Dr. Benji, I'm going to go another lay down with love, with care. Until next time, goodbye.